So on adventure, um, the concept of a tabletop adventure lies in bringing an adventure to the tabletop. Now, that comes with certain fallacies, certain things that can go wrong, which I'll come to later. But let me just spoil a little bit by saying it comes with a feeling of adventure. You can't just experience adventure as a concept intellectually. The feeling of adventure is ubiquitous, but three aspects can lead up to an adventure in a tabletop, and that is crystallized very clearly to me walking this morning, and that is the concept of journey, the concept of challenge, and the concept of discovery. Journey, you have to leave a place. You have to leave your comfortable surroundings in order to find adventure, to go somewhere and not be where you're normally at, but where the unknown lies. And that will tie into the other two aspects. But you can aim for something. You can know that there's a treasure out there that you need to find, or a person that you need to help. But you also need to get away from your home. You need to go out and explore. The journey implies movement. And movement brings you from one area to another area. So it ties into location. It ties into the aspect of discovering a location, being challenged by a location, which brings us to the second and third point. The second point, challenges. Challenges need to be there to have you transition from your old self to your new self, to prepare you for things to come, to again overlap the area from your old surroundings to your new surroundings. You also see in challenge a negative connotation that is perceived as risk, as perceived as potential of getting harmed or wounded or losing something, of loss. But challenge can also be a positive. It can bring you treasure, it can bring you gear, it can bring you something that makes you grow, it can make you learn something about yourself, experience. All these aspects, they're tied into challenge, and challenges also make the journey more worthwhile, both in a negative and in a positive sense. Now, when you overcome a challenge, you often discover things. You discover the challenge itself, but you may discover, like I said, treasure or gear. You may discover a new path forward, something that has been blocking you from your transition from your old place and your old self to a new place and your new self is discovered. And in that discovery lies mostly positive things that you want to experience because you're discovering something new. That's probably the reason why you're going out on an adventure in the first place. But you are also discovering the mystery. You're discovering why things work the way that they work. You see the larger picture. You are uncovering new things that you didn't know before. And so a mystery can be resolved. It doesn't necessarily have to be a mystery. It can also just be that you're uncovering generally new things that you didn't know before, and that again in itself is its own reward. Now, an adventure, even consisting of a journey, challenges, and discovery, can be very hard to feel like an adventure. A tabletop adventure ultimately is still played at the table in your safe surroundings without real challenges, and let's be honest, without real discoveries. There are discoveries textually that you may be discovery of birds. There might be discovery of new texts, new images, artwork, game mechanics, dare I say it, in a tabletop adventure that you are finding, but Generally speaking, if the tabletop adventure falls flat, it falls flat and there's no sense of adventure. So it's more a sense of feeling, a feeling of adventure. And this makes it really hard for tabletop adventures to really succeed, because if there's too much emphasis on the gameplay loops and the gameplay framework, if there's too much emphasis on mechanics working just right, and there even being like a good healthy story or theme versus mechanics balance, then again the adventure eludes. And so it is up to us, the player, to contribute to any game, board game or otherwise, a sense of adventure and instill what we find is important in an adventure. For me, that's journey. That's see, it's now escaping me already because now I've sort of talked it out. The journey, the why can't I think of this? What do I need to discover? Oh, right, discovery. Journey, challenge, and discovery. These things need to be felt. And what does it take to feel these things in an adventure? What does it mean to rise beyond the board game components, beyond the closed game concept of a board game, and approach a board game with, or a role-playing game, an open game, with a pursuit, with a standpoint of it needs to be open, because it first needs to be open, and you need to be able to go out and explore if you are to consider a board game an adventure, a tabletop adventure. A role-playing game likewise, you need to almost solidify the role-playing experience, whatever that may be, through your tabletop tools that you have, your components, your gameplay, your core gameplay loop, and your structure, the mechanics that you have, in order to push you forward, to give you guidance, to hold your hand, but not too much, because you still need that sense of adventure. So to grow from a board game or a role-playing game, meet somewhere in the middle, to not have a board game simulate a role-playing game by having a role-playing game in a box, or, like I like to juxtapose it, having a what did I call it again, when you have not a board game simulating a role-playing game, but you have a role-playing game simulating a board game, or using a board game? I guess maybe a enhanced role-playing session, a cardboard adventure. I don't know. Anyway, there no doubt is something like that. But you see that board games are definitely trying to instill a sense of role-playing in their adventure, and most of them fail. Even the role-playing games in a box, the very few that there are, folklore, role player adventures, Vampire the Masquerade chapters, maybe even Lands of Evershade and Story of Many. There are a lot of games, board games, that simulate role-playing games in one way or another, but they don't give you that feeling of being on an adventure. And so being on an adventure, the adventure concept, the tabletop adventure concept, rises beyond board games and role-playing games. It rises beyond the role-playing game in a box. It or the board game in a book. Maybe that's the term that I used. And it is more than that. It is being on a journey, meeting challenges and discovery of new things, and then feeling that.